So you've been through all the lessons, the 2 classes, and we're now at the very last lesson, and we want to talk about putting it into practice. So there's 3 keys to power intelligence. And if you're a coach or you're a consultant, you're an educator, or if you're a leader and you just want to work on your own use of power, or you're not a leader but you want to develop your use of power, whether you're a parent, a politician, a social activist, an entrepreneur, whatever it is you're doing, there's 3 areas where you can grow. And I want to go over some of the activities that we've been through in this class together that you can work on for each of the keys to power intelligence. So first of all, developing your use of power. What are the coaching and development activities you should be doing to develop your use of power? Number 1, first of all, really review what are the different powers and how am I doing using them? Remember all those powers we talked about? Am I only using 1 or 2? Am I avoiding some? Am I fluent and flexible in my use of power? Am I using them all, and do I know what they are? Second is, how am I using them? Am I aware of the impact I'm making when I use this power? Am I using my informal power to be inclusive? Right? Am I using my expert power to mentor and guide and teach? So how am I using these powers, and what's the impact I'm making? For that one, by the way, I'd like to say that feedback is really important. If you can get actual honest feedback or participated in a 360 assessment to understand how am I using my powers, that would be very, very helpful. And then the last thing to think about when you think about developing your use of power is context. Are you context savvy? How well are you able to read the room, to understand the context, and to actually ask yourself what power is needed in this particular context? And this is really important for being influential. If you can understand, okay, who are the players here? What's the situation? What power should I be pulling on in order to be most impactful and most influential? That will go a long way towards your success in whatever you're doing. So are you using power appropriately to the context, and are you context savvy? So those are 3 things to focus on to really develop your own or coach others on their use of power, developing their use of power. The second one is developing your sense of power. What is it that you want to be doing? Or what is it that you want to be coaching leaders or coaching other people on to develop their sense of power? Well, first of all, just becoming aware. What is your sense of power? How powerful do you feel? Right? This could be a self-assessment. It could be a conversation. You know, what's your sense of your ability to impact other people, to be effective in the situations that you're operating in? You know, what's your subjective sense of power? Just becoming aware of that, and then becoming aware of the gaps and challenges you have. You know, where do you feel effective, but then where do you feel ineffective? Where do you feel you're not able to impact people or have the impact you want to be having? And then specifically, and this is really important, which contexts are most challenging for you and why? Like, what's going on? When does your sense of power drop? Is it certain people? Is it certain topics? Or is it certain challenges? Like times of day, maybe? Maybe it's related to blood sugar. Who knows? But what's going on? What is the variation in your sense of power, context to context? And then what gets in the way? Be really specific. Like, what makes it hard for me to use my power effectively? Or what makes it really hard for me to show up feeling that I have a high sense of power? What are those things, right? What are the triggers I need to track? And so that's the last piece, is really what I call tracking triggers, like really understanding what knocks me off my perch, what makes me not show up with my best thinking. You know, where do I freeze? Where do I suddenly feel like I'm, 12 years old again and unable to really speak or be effective? Or where do I lose my temper or get impatient? And what can I do about it? You know, do I have methods for working on that? Can I anticipate that? Can I prepare for that? So there's a lot there. That's just not one day. That's a lifetime, let's be clear. But there's a lot you can do there to develop your sense of power. The third thing is, What about developing your role awareness, developing your awareness of being in a role of power? What are the coaching activities? What are you doing with yourself, and what are you doing with others when you're growing role awareness? So first of all, really meditating on the question, what is this role? What does the role demand? What is the context I'm serving? What are the responsibilities of this role? What am I meant to do? What am I meant to accomplish? Especially if there's something you don't want to do, ask yourself, what does the role demand? Does it demand that I do it or not? Second is really working to separate your personal needs and your personal reactions from the demands of the role. So are you able to really understand what's your personal need and what's really a demand of the role? Sometimes we get really confused, we get really caught up. Like we think, for example, some people are just they're really competitive and they work really, really hard, or they really, fight to succeed at work. But you might have to ask yourself, wait a minute, is what I'm doing really good for the business, or am I just trying to get ahead? Like, yeah, I'm delivering a project, or yeah, I'm doing good work, but at what point does that start to kind of veer off track? Is it really good for the business? Am I kind of making my team work too hard for my own personal gain? Is it really good for the people that I'm working with, or is it just good for me? And finally, being really aware of the privileges of a role, right? Being really aware of what it gives you, right? That people look up to you, or you have access to information or resources, that people won't hold you accountable, that you have low supervision. Like, really ask yourself, what are the privileges that I have in this role? And am I holding myself in integrity, right? And do I have other people who can help hold me in integrity there? This is a hard one, because unless we have the willingness to look at that, we'll be tempted. So we might have to engage helpers. We might have to ask for feedback. We might have to continually be held accountable by others to really understand, what are the privileges, and am I holding myself in integrity? So those are activities that you can do to grow your use of power, your sense of power, and your role awareness. And again, I want to emphasize it's an ongoing activity. It's not just a one and done thing. So I hope you've enjoyed the course. I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you've learned a lot about your own use of power. I hope you've learned a lot about power in general, power on your teams, at work, with your clients, with your organizations, in your personal relationships. And, it's my goal that we all become better users of power. And I hope that this contributes in some small way to you and to the people around you, using your power in better ways. If you want to share your experiences with me, or you have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. And remember, if nothing else, I hope that this course has convinced you that the positive use of power is possible. It's learnable, right? And just like driving a car, power is a competency that can be taught, it can be practiced, and it can be developed over a lifetime.